Howdy. So it's been a little while, and I haven't really posted a video in a long time. Um, I don't really post anything other than wedding videos nowadays because it fits my channel a lot. But something really special happened yesterday I wanted to talk about. So, yesterday, Spider Man 2 Another World came out. And so far, everybody's really happy with it. Some people think the acting sucks, and the costumes suck, and the CG sucks, and other people have watched other fan films before, so they're used to the gist of these things. Um, Currently, it's doing really well. It's getting a lot of views, and I've expressed my love for it on Facebook. But in case anybody hasn't seen or heard what I think of it so far, is that I think it's a crowning achievement in the fan film community. I think it's a crowning achievement in um, independent filmmaking in general. Some of you might actually be asking, and this is the question that I'm going to answer in this video, is where am I? I'm in one scene. We saw these teaser trailers and all this stuff where I was like fighting him and stuff like that. And I've given some basic general ideas as to why we didn't do what we did or planned to do and advertised that we were going to do. But basically, what we ended up doing at the very beginning was we had an idea to see our two Spider-Man fight together and against one another because we'd never seen anything like that before. We'd never seen the Spider-Verse before. This was like 2013, remember that? So 2014, something like that. I don't really remember, actually, but probably 2015. I don't. Why am I still on this? Anyways, we were working very closely on trying to develop a script that both me and him were behind. And since it was a sequel to Spider-Man Lost Cause, it only seemed fair that he got more of the chunk of the screenplay before we started to like interlace our narratives. So the deal, I believe, was with my buddy Mikey, who wrote Nascent Nation. He wrote the first 26 pages of that script for me and my character and what my character was going through at the time post Intractable. And we also focused a little bit on what Joey was doing, and Joey was kind of writing his bit. Joey's bit was so fantastical, and it was trying to do so much with what Lost Cause left off with, that we were trying to reel him back so that we could make it work tonally, because it didn't really fit what we were fighting for at the time, which was like this tonal consistency between the two of us, and my grounded approach versus his more entertaining, boisterous, explosive, bombastic, colorful tint to everything. It just didn't mesh very well, and I would have to end up delegating some of the creative validity of my character to, forsake, just for the sake of just getting the plot to move forward. And so we worked on that for a little while, and I got kind of frustrated because I started to realize the more that we were writing it, the less I just wanted to do it at all. And I ended up figuring out exactly what that was later on, which I'll discuss, but just keep up with the video. Sorry, I kind of ramble a little bit, but I'm trying to keep this on track. So yeah, I started to realize that Joey had his own story. He was throwing in Venom, he was throwing in Eddie Brock, he was throwing in all this stuff that I was like, that's a lot. I can't work with that. I can't balance that with my script. It's going to be like just a hogtied mess. This is going to be awful. So I was like, I'm going to let him tell the story that he's going to tell, because right now, for whatever reason, I don't want to tell it. Between that, we were doing like screen tests and things like that, and we were trying to work out how we would get a fight scene shot, and he's a little shorter than me, so how would we compensate for that? Probably get like a double, and he'd send the suit over, but what if it gets damaged? Like, all of those things were things that we talked about all the time. And for like a solid 5 months, this was going to happen the way we talked about it happening. And I was working on Nascent Nation at the time. It was in its infancy. And something happened with me halfway through that film where I clicked, and suddenly I didn't want to work on Another World at all. I didn't want anything to do with it. I didn't want anything to do with Spider-Man. I barely wanted anything to do with Nascent Nation. And a good portion of that can be attributed to the fact that, generally speaking, I was just falling out of love with filmmaking. Now, with that being said, the reason why I've diagnosed in my own self-reflection is that for so long I've used film as a therapeutic device, and I used it as a way to cope and to express and to extrapolate on the things that woe me and the things that begrudge me. And now I've kind of come to this understanding in retrospect that film should not just be holistically a coping and therapeutic device. It should also be used to inspire and to educate and to entertain and to help someone triumph. And I used it in a lot of ways as just kind of a dumping ground for sadness and apathy and lethargic, like temporal angst. And that was really bothering me. And so you get to this point with Nascent Nation. It's a movie about a girl getting raped, and it weighed on me that it was like, even if I'm saying something kind of profound, the vehicles that I'm using in order to get that and convey that message forward, it's so benign and so like and disingenuine, even if it's all coming from the right place. You know, to an actual victim of sexual assault, it looks like nothing more than preachy and off the mark and off the base. And so, because I started to feel that way, I started getting creatively drained, and there were a lot of little fixes and tweaks that I needed to make to Nascent Nation that I just ultimately couldn't care less about. I needed to get it scored by a musician, and I wasn't able to communicate with a musician, and he dropped out of the project, rightfully so, because I was just in this weird realm, this weird mindset, and I had other things going on. And so halfway through, I was done filming Nascent Nation, and then all of a sudden I moved to a totally different state. I'm not going to necessarily disclose why I moved to that other state, but it was for my best interest. It was for my health. It was to do what made me happy again, because film wasn't really doing that for me, and also I'd always wanted to do this thing. Traveled there, and I live there now, so it was a great decision. I'm still happy. But I did move away from a lot of resources within the film industry, one of them namely being just, Jesse and his crew. And I didn't see them primarily as resources, but they were a good way to tap in the well. If it was like, if I wanted to get something shot, you could kind of usually count on them with a phone call and be like, hey, if you're not busy this weekend, it'd be kind of cool to shoot a short film or whatever with you guys. And more normally they'd be like, okay, or no, I can't do it. But at least they were there if you needed to access that and you needed help with like your creative, itch. But I haven't been surrounded by that sort of thing in a long time. And, I was told that it was going to bother me and that I was making a mistake, but I still don't feel that way. Even though I'm near literally no resources for making films, I haven't really wanted to in a long time. And I think that bothers me a little bit because I know what I am and I know what I'm good at. But some part of me doesn't feel like it's necessary yet, and it doesn't feel like it needs to progress yet, and nothing has eclipsed me and taken me over so much so that I need to feel like another story is being told. So anyways, fast forward, Nascent Nation gets released, and it's released about 75% of what I wanted it to be, but I didn't have the emotional capacity because I think I was battling with a massive bout of depression at the time to actually do the things that are necessary, like clean up the Superman suit, get rid of the bulge in his pants, fix some audio issues by just adding a few filters. But something about me was just so, and I felt like if I released the film, then I would feel better, but I felt kind of empty and hollow because it was like this source of sensible kind of sustainability in my life. It was something I did on the weekends. It was something I did when I was around friends. And now that I'm not around those friends, and now that it's not something I do on the weekends, it's like, what do I do now, you know? And so I just kind of lived a normal life. But then something happened, which was the Spider-Man 2 Another World trailer, that first trailer. When that dropped, I understood then what Joey was so passionate about when I saw his original drafts. And I was so happy that I stepped aside for him, because it was so obvious that he had an actual vision and thing he wanted to achieve and get out there for people to see. It was something that it was so obvious to me after I saw it, but I did feel like I betrayed myself for allowing that depression and that feeling of creative drought to literally eclipse my ability to help a friend out and pursue this dream that he wanted and make this film with him. And so I shot my scene on a beach. I had this idea. It was very quick, but it still felt pertinent and cohesive with what the grounded aspects of my character were. You never actually see the other Spider-Man, so technically he doesn't really understand if he was talking to Spider-Man. He kind of feels like he was talking to Uncle Ben. It felt profound enough for me to be like, okay, I can invest in that. I can spend time on that. I can work with this and flesh it out into something that's actually going to work for both of our characters. You know, he gets that fantastical element of communicating with another Spider-Man. My character keeps to himself in his own interpersonal world, but also gets to kind of branch out into this more, like, you know, inclusive, spectacle-driven film. And so it felt like a win-win, so I went ahead and shot that. And the entire time I was shooting it, I felt like I was shooting stuff when I was like 16 again, because I was just alone. And, you know, it felt weird in a lot of ways to be out there on that beach with people staring at me again and wondering what the hell I'm doing, and me being really thankful I'm not wearing a Spider-Man suit while I was doing it. I wanted to put on the suit, but at the time I wasn't really in the shape for it. And on top of that, when I went to look for the suit, I must have thrown it away. I promised this guy that I was going to give it to him. His name is Khan. At least I believe that is his name. I promised I was going to send it to him. He lives in Turkey, I believe. And I was going to do it, but I just got like slammed busy for like a straight month. And then I must have either thrown it away or left it at the other house that I used to live in before I moved. So that didn't happen, and I didn't have the suit, so I couldn't reshoot the scene with the Spider-Man suit, so nobody was able to see that. And I understand that that's generally kind of depressing in some ways. I understand that it sucks to see my Spider-Man without like all of the things that made him what he was to these people that kind of watched it whenever it came out in 2014, I believe. All those people that saw the intractable Spider-Man had a vision and idea of what it would be like if he were to appear in another world, and it didn't live up to that. And part of me wants to apologize. Part of me wants you to understand that it was from a place of mental illness. It was from a place of depression. I'm still not in a place right now where I want to make another film and dedicate to it entirely. And it's just in honesty, like, I need a really good script. I need something that sets it apart. I need things to fall in place, and I try to make them fall in place inorganically, but a lot of this is just kind of a patience thing and just waiting for things to kind of like seep in for me and feel like I'm ready to make those sacrifices again. I'm ready to take time away from things that I enjoy again for these types of stories. And until that happens, I can't genuinely promise that you'll see very much from me soon. But when I say that I really did the best I could with that scene in Another World, given my circumstances and my resources and lack thereof, I mean it. And generally the reception's been fine, but I do feel like part of me needs to apologize for not delivering on the capacity that people thought I was going to. But I just want to say again, Joey is an incredible filmmaker. He's a much more engaging and entertaining and creative filmmaker than I have ever been. He takes leaps and bounds to explore ideas in ways that I never wouldn't have the guts to, wouldn't really know how to organically perform it, without just kind of taking cues from other directors the entire time. I mean, this is in his DNA. It's in his DNA to make fun films. For whatever reason, it's in my DNA to make sad films. I'm trying to reverse that right now. I'm trying to find a way to fix that about myself, because I know that it's not fun to just watch the sad show all the time. So until I get to that point, I don't really want to put anybody else through like this kind of weird projection of all of my innermost negative thoughts and nihilistic thoughts. But again, Joey did an amazing job on Another World, with or without my inclusion. I think he really understands the character. I think he always had, but I think people understand now that he actually did really understand the character, and it wasn't just for the superficial aspects, but that there are things about the character that we all connect to. He is the quintessential indie blockbuster filmmaker that makes backyard blockbusters and exploits the styrofoam in his room to make a castle. I mean, he's just that guy. And I'm sure there's people out there that do similar things, but Joey just has his own way of doing it that you cannot find in anyone else. He has his own way of looking at the world, and no matter how you want to paint that, I think that's beautiful. So thank you for watching Another World. Thank you for your comments about my inclusion in Another World or lack thereof. Thank you for your concerns about why you didn't see me. I don't know if I really missed any details in this, but yeah, ultimately it can be easily surmised, and the TLDR can be, I was unhealthy mentally, I was depressed, and I was creatively burnt out because I did this stuff, as a career, as a commercial filmmaker or whatever, and doing all this client work in between, and I didn't want to really pick up my camera anymore. Thankfully, I'm a little past that now, but I'm not ready to pick up a camera for narrative purposes. So, but anyways, I think I've said it all. I think I'm just kind of rambling like I said I would. And yeah, I appreciate you guys. Thank you.